Hey everyone, Johnny here. Don't speak news. News we're not supposed to speak about. And we have our November, December fundraising up. It's at the top of the website at don'tspeaknews.com. Thanks to those of you who have contributed already. It's the end of the month and we are up against it as always. We have utilities, news subscriptions, and much more due and payable now as always. And as you can see, we can't get sponsors anymore. We never really have had any because it's just not allowed for a website like mine. So the new funding is up. I'll put the link up like I always do, but it's at the top of the website at don'tspeaknews.com. And thanks again to those of you who supported. And thank you also, even more so, for all the prayers that you send us as well. Because without that, man, we wouldn't stick around either. God's grace is the reason that we're here. And now on to the news at hand. We'll start with news that everybody's been speaking about today because I've seen lots of videos on this particular subject. Russia's Foreign Intelligence Service has warned about 100,000 strong NATO intervention in Ukraine. And so I'm just going to skip down here. This is a guest post and a good one by Andrew Korobiko again. And it says, NATO might be willing to test Putin's patience by crossing yet another of Russia's perceived red lines in spite of its updated nuclear doctrine and the new Oreshniks. This NATO-Russian proxy war in Ukraine might be on the brink of an unprecedented escalation that could easily spiral out of control. That's correct. If Russia's Foreign Intelligence Service, the SVR, is correct in claiming that NATO is planning a 100,000 strong military intervention in Ukraine under the guise of peacekeepers. The purpose is to freeze the conflict, which Russia doesn't want, presumably by having these troops function as tripwires for deterring a Russian attack that could spark World War III and then rebuild Ukraine's military-industrial complex. So here we go. Here's the plan. It's revealed that Poland will have control over Western Ukraine like it did during the interwar period. Romania will be responsible for the Black Sea coast, which it seized during World War II and ruled as the Transnistria Governorate. The UK will lord over Kiev in the north, while Germany will deploy its forces to the center and east of the country. The latest Rheinmetall will lead the efforts to rebuild Ukraine's military-industrial complex by investing heavily, dispatching specialists, and providing high-performance equipment. Now I'll let you read the rest on your own. Oh, I should say that they do also have training centers planned in Ukraine, which is planned to drag at least 1 million mobilized Ukrainians, which is why they're pushing for the conscription age in Ukraine to be dropped to 18, which is because it's now at 25. This is why Ukraine soldiers are a little bit older, because you have to be 25 to serve. Well, that may be dropped to 18 if Ukraine gives in to the pressure from the West, which I'm sure they probably will. So I'll let you read the rest on your own, but that's what's being planned right now by NATO inside of Ukraine. We'll have to see if it actually materializes. Oh, speaking of Ukraine, some of you have asked in the comment section on the website, why Ukraine? Why are they so interested in fighting over Ukraine? Well, here's one reason. Senator Lindsey Graham says that Ukraine sits on $1 trillion worth of minerals that could be good for our economy. Imagine that. Money and materials again. Standing next to Zelensky in Kiev, U.S. Senator Lindsey Graham said that the West must keep sending weapons to Ukraine because they're sitting on $1 trillion worth of minerals that could be good to our economy. So there's one big reason. Okay, plus the West wants to carve Russia up into small, little, separate countries that they can then dominate and then, of course, take advantage of and take all their minerals and all their resources, including all the oil, natural gas. I mean, there's a lot of reasons they want to get into Russia proper as well. And so this war will continue because NATO definitely doesn't want to lose out on all of these $1 trillion worth of minerals. Like Lindsey Graham says, could be good for our economy. Not so good for Ukraine and Russia, but good for the U.S. and the West. Just saying. And then Putin says that decision-making centers in Kiev are on their Oreshnik target list. That's their new missile system. So here's some key points from Putin's statements on the Oreshnik missile system at the CSTO meeting that was just held here the other day. Number one says the General Staff and Ministry of Defense are currently selecting targets for the Oreshnik missile to be deployed on Ukrainian territory. Decision-making centers in Kiev could become a target for the Oreshnik. In the event of a massive use of the Oreshnik, the force of the strike will be comparable to nuclear weapons, he says. The Oreshnik missile system is capable of striking deep sea and well-protected targets, so think of bunker busting. The Russian Federation will continue combat tests of the Oreshnik in response to enemy action, and the Russian Federation has begun serial production, or mass production, you could say, of the Oreshnik. There are no analogs to the Russian Oreshnik in the world, and they will not appear anytime soon, he says. This technology is exclusive to Russia, is what he's saying. Although other countries, including the US, have been testing hypersonics. So the message behind the missile. Putin's remarks on the Oreshnik missile system are not just about showcasing Russia's technological prowess. They're a clear signal to the West that the era of unchallenged NATO dominance is over. The Oreshnik, capable of delivering strikes comparable to nuclear force, represents a seismic shift in the global balance of power. Its ability to obliterate deep sea and well-protected targets renders much of the West's defensive posturing obsolete. This is not a weapon of escalation. It's a weapon of deterrence, designed to compel adversaries to rethink their delusions of invincibility. Indeed. And what I understand, guys, the reports I've been reading, they didn't even have active warheads on these Oreshniks. These are just dummy warheads. And because of the extreme speed and kinetic energy that they struck the targets with, that's what pulverized the targets, not the explosions. Now imagine that same kinetic energy with explosive warheads on it, including nuclear. Just saying. The implications are staggering. As serial production ramps up, Moscow is effectively telling NATO, push us further and we will respond with overwhelming force. The potential targeting of decision-making centers in Kiev underscores the Kremlin's resolve to dismantle the very infrastructure sustaining the Western-backed puppet and the West's aggression. For all of Washington's talk of deterrence, it's now clear that Russia has redefined the concept entirely. The Oreshnik just isn't a missile, it's a doctrine, a declaration that Russia's red lines are not negotiable. So the West should take heed. This is not a bluff, nor is it a gesture for theater. It's the cold reality of a multipolar world where the rules are no longer dictated from Washington. The choice is clear. De-escalate or face consequences that no amount of NATO symmetry can reverse. Indeed, it's time. But they're not going to. It's worldwide Armageddon time. So this is going to continue to escalate. Or there'll be lulls in the action. But don't think for a second this is going to go away. It is not. And as you can see, Hal Turner has the same info. NATO to deploy 100,000 peacekeeper troops to Ukraine. And then, as we switch over to Syria, we have a critical situation in Aleppo. Will it change in the next 24 hours? Because it will be a strategic defeat of Russia. The Syrian forces are reminiscent of, they're saying the South, what they mean is the South Vietnamese army in 1975, dissolving before they ever fight. And so they're comparing it to that because the Islamist militants have basically overrun Aleppo again. So the Islamic paramilitary forces, well, they've basically taken Aleppo. This translation's really bad. But as you can see here, Syrian rebels have captured a massive depot of Russian weapons, ammunition, and military equipment. Meanwhile, government troops and officials loyal to Assad are fleeing Aleppo. They were caught with their pants down, guys. Assad has been demobilizing since 2020 because they didn't see a threat anymore. They thought all these people were defeated. Well, guess what? They've been secretly rearming and training. We remind you that from Wednesday, 11/27, systematic attacks by Islamic terrorist organizations have been occurring. The Islamist Telegram channels report they are already in the suburbs and have blocked the M5 motorway to Damascus, and Syrian forces have confirmed that. There is a chaotic situation in the city. Assad has demobilized much of the armed forces since 2020, considering the danger had passed. All this time, he did nothing to clear the area, and now he seems to be paying for this inaction. It should have been to completely eliminate this extremist Muslim pocket, but he did not, considering that there was no significant risk. Or maybe he couldn't. Maybe because he was afraid he would rekindle the war. Maybe because he didn't have the strength. Let's not forget that the war in Syria has been going on since 2011, and the Syrian forces have rightly reached a great point of fatigue. However, the word failure is too small to describe the extent of the fiasco of the secret services of Syria and Russia. No one was able to figure out that in the Turkish-controlled areas of Idlib, the Islamists were preparing for a major offensive. So the images of Russian dead and prisoners have flooded the internet. It's unbelievable, but when the battle for Aleppo began, it took 3 years for the Islamists to stop. The problem for Russia is big, since it opens a big corridor for the natural gas in northern Syria, ending up in the Mediterranean. And after Aleppo, the question is how Damascus and the Russian base in Tartus will withstand this. but also the Latakia region as well, which Russia controls. So I'll have to see. But yeah, this would be another defeat for Russia. And now we can kind of see why Netanyahu and Israel were so willing to sign up for that ceasefire in Lebanon, because this was going to happen right after that. So isn't that something? From Time Magazine, insurgents breached Syria's second largest city, Aleppo, in a shock offensive. Insurgents breached Syria's second largest city, Aleppo, after blowing up 2 car bombs on Friday and were clashing with government forces on the city's western edge, according to a Syria war monitor and fighters. Residents were fleeing neighborhoods on the city's edge because of missiles and gunfire, according to witnesses in Aleppo. The insurgents' advance on Aleppo followed a shock offensive they launched on Wednesday, as thousands of fighters swept through villages and towns in Syria's northwestern countryside. The surprise attack added new uncertainty to a region already reeling from the dual wars in Gaza and Lebanon with Israel and other conflicts, including the unresolved Syrian civil war that began in 2011, which is actually a proxy war waged by Israel and the U.S. as they pay these foreign fighters to go attack Syria. As you can see here from my Telegram account, a very large amount of the HTS fighters that entered western Aleppo today are Uzbek mercenaries. This video shows HTS terrorist members planning for the operation in Khan al-Assal, and all of them speaking Uzbek. Not a single Syrian is present. Reports that most of the commanders are Ukrainian and Turkish, and that makes sense. So it's a mercenary war, guys. Mercenary war. Turkey has opened the border crossings to Syria to facilitate the flow of Turkish-backed multinational mercenaries into Idlib and western Aleppo to assist the rebel advance. That's from Al Mayadeen. So Turkey's involved in this too. And as we can see right here, it's already much clearer why Netanyahu accepted the ceasefire, despite failing to achieve a single goal in Lebanon. He is guaranteed by the U.S. with the help of Erdogan and Turkey, a new front will be opened in Syria against Assad, Hezbollah, and Iran. For years, Erdogan trained and recruited terrorists from the remnants of ISIS, Al-Qaeda, Al-Nusra Front, and a number of other recruits in Tajikistan, Uzbekistan, Azerbaijan, and other countries in the Turkish sphere. In less than 24 hours after the ceasefire, Erdogan opened the front. Now the fight against the resistance forces will be fought on the territory of Syria, and Netanyahu will have time to regroup and rearm, which he says he's planning on doing. Hezbollah and the Russian aviation will again be focused in Syria. And then there's these reports coming in. Israel started directly helping the terrorists moving towards Aleppo, as they say that dozens of wireless communication devices, including pagers and walkie-talkies, have exploded among the Syrian Arab army. Here's some more pictures of that. So they're saying that Mossad is directly aiding the terrorist advance. And why wouldn't they? They've done it before. Listen to the former director of the Mossad admitting that Israel armed Al-Qaeda and other terrorist groups in the Middle East.
Okay, you say no preference. There have been reports that Israel has been treating wounded Syrian rebel fighters in its hospitals on the border, including fighters from Nusra Front, which is, of course, the Al-Qaeda proxy in Syria. Do those reports worry you that Israel's helping wounded Al-Qaeda-aligned fighters?
As I said before, in a different context, it's always useful also to deal with your enemies in a humane way. And I think that when you have people who are wounded and you can deal with them in a humane way, the considerations as to whether to take them in are not simply whether it's politically useful or whether it's politically
So it's purely humanitarian, you say. So there's no tactical or political strategic...
I didn't say there's no tactical. I said the main consideration, the immediate consideration is humane.
But the tactical issues involved, I mean, you know better than me the phrase blowback. You don't think there's going to be blowback against Israel if you get into bed with a group like Nusra Front?
No, I don't think so. I don't think there's going to be blowback.
Why?
Because I think that, unfortunately, the rules of the game in Syria are such that you can do anything that is not possible to be done anywhere else.
Yeah, I think people said that in Afghanistan too. Would you also treat Hezbollah fighters?
No. I would not treat...
Have you not just contradicted what you told me 60 seconds ago about humanely treating your enemies?
No.
Yes, he did. He completely contradicted himself. He said he would humanely treat, Al-Qaeda fighters, but not Hezbollah fighters. That's a complete contradiction. Listen to this guy scramble now.
I think as far as Hezbollah fighters are concerned, with them we have a different account.
So let me be clear, you're happy to treat Al-Qaeda fighters, but not Hezbollah fighters?
We have a different account with Hezbollah, a totally different account, because Hezbollah has carried out the type of actions against us which preclude us from going into what the Al-Qaeda has done. Al-Qaeda, to the best of my recollection, has up to now not attacked Israel.
And gee, I wonder why that is, Mr. Former Mossad chief. Unbelievable. So there you go, straight from the horse's mouth. Of course they helped al-Nusra and Al-Qaeda, and they're still helping them. They're still helping them to this day, or they wouldn't be there. Turkey's helping, the U.S. is helping, and this is one of the reasons why Netanyahu agreed to that ceasefire, in my and other people's opinion. And that is it for now. Wow. A lot to keep our eyes on, guys. I'll do the best that I can, like I always do. But it's crazy out there. Wars, rumors of wars, all over the place. And it's just going to continue to escalate from here. And this is why Ukraine is such a hot spot, for those of you who are wondering. And don'tspeaknews.com is home base for all that we do. If you'd like to subscribe to the website, click on the Subscribe Contact Johnny tab, and then just type in your email here, click on subscribe, and you're in. Or you may just type it in at the end of every post. This box is also there, and you may get a pop-up while you're reading an article as well. So if you want to sign up, I make it easy to do. And then there's also 2 emails to contact me at Don't Speak News at ProtonMail and jstorm2112 at Yahoo. And if you'd like to find us on Rumble, BitChute, Telegram, YouTube, and elsewhere, all those links are right underneath this tab. And these are all the different places where you can find us on the web. And that will be it for now. God bless, take care. Johnny Storm, Don't Speak News.